Today my friend's going to teach you how to solve a 2x2 blindfolded.
What's up YouTube? Today I'm going to be showing you how to solve a 2x2 blindfolded with one algorithm. Simple. Today I'm going to be teaching the old Pachman method, which is a simple method for blind solving that swaps two corners at a time using an algorithm called the Y-perm. Takes this corner and this corner and swaps places, and the idea of the method is that you can swap two pieces at a time over and over again to solve the whole cube. There are two things you have to learn to know the old Pachman method. The first, and probably the most important thing, is something called the Spef's lettering scheme. This is a lettering scheme that is used to describe certain places on the cube by a letter. For example, this piece right here is known as O. I'm going to explain how that works now. So, each piece and each sticker on the piece gets a letter. Starting on the white side, it goes clockwise, and then it goes to the orange, then green, then red, blue, and yellow. So, A, B, C, D, and then we go to the orange side, E, F, G, H. We go to the green side, I, J, K, and L. On the red side we have M, N, O, P. And then on the blue side we have Q, R, S, T. And then finally we have the yellow side with U, V, W, X. So this lettering scheme is really simple and easy to remember. And if you're ever having trouble figuring out which piece is what letter, you can just go clockwise through the alphabet, starting with white, then going to orange, then green, then red, blue, and then yellow. So, for example, if I'm looking at this piece right here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V. So I would know this piece is V by just going through the alphabet. The second major thing you have to learn is an algorithm called the Y-perm. This algorithm is really simple and swaps whatever is in the E location with what is in the V location. Specifically looking at right here and right here. Not here, not here, not here, not here, but this piece and this piece. So, this algorithm goes R, U prime, R prime, U prime, R, U, R prime, F prime, R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, F, R. You might already know this algorithm as the Y-perm from the 3x3, and it's just the Y-perm without the F. So, the basic idea of this method is that you can use this algorithm with setup moves to swap between any piece and here to solve the cube. Now I'm going to go through a really basic solve that doesn't involve any new cycles or flipped corners, which is something that you will learn about later. So, what we do when we want to start a solve is we look at the buffer piece, and then we look at where it goes. So, the green part of the white, green, and red would actually go right here. So, thinking about the special lettering scheme, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. So, once we figure out what letter this piece goes to, what was in the E location goes to J, we're going to memorize that letter. So, J. We're going to look at what is in the location that we just chose, and that's the blue part of the yellow, blue, and orange corner. Since it's the blue part, it would go back here into the S slot. So if we think about that, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S. So that goes right there. So this is the buffer piece. This is the white, blue, and orange corner, which goes up to here. And once we reach the buffer piece, we're done. So now we have J, H is our memorized string of letters. So now, since we've reached the buffer piece and we've affected all of the unsolved corners. We're done with memorization. It's time to go into execution. So, when you want to execute and you're sure you've memorized your whole letter string, what you first do is you think about what the first letter was. So for this one, it was J. Well, this is J right here. So now we have to put J into the swapping spot. The V location is the swapping spot. So what we do is called a setup move. So what we have to do is find a move or two. Any setup move can be done in less than 3 moves that can put this location right here, which we just chose as the first letter, so J, into the V location. So for this one, it's really simple. It would just be R prime. We do our swapping algorithm, and then we undo our setup move, which was R. Our next letter was H. Sorry, our next letter was S. This is the S location right here, and now we have to do a setup move. One restriction on setup moves is you cannot affect the buffer slot. So you cannot do any move that will touch this piece. So F moves are allowed, R moves are allowed, and D moves are allowed, but L moves will affect this, and B moves will affect this as well. So you might look at this and think a really easy way to do it is like this, but as you can see, we affected this slot. So we can't do that. What we have to do instead is find some way to move this to here without touching this. So for this one, the optimal setup move will be D, which puts it to here, F prime. That puts it into the right slot. Do our swapping algorithm, and we're going to undo our setup moves. So we had D, F prime, so now we're going to do F, D prime. And now the cube is solved. Now I'm going to teach you about something called cycles. So this is a concept that happens fairly commonly, and normally in most solves you will have to deal with this. So this is when you memorize, you see this would go to right here, which is the W location. So you memorize W, and you notice this is the buffer piece, which means you're done, right? No, not really. You're done with what's called a cycle. So if you happen to get to the buffer piece before the whole cube is solved, so you notice you've got here, but you still have these 2 pieces that are unsolved, you have to start what's called a new cycle. So what we have here is an unsolved piece here and here. So normally you will pick any piece that is unsolved. So I might pick right here, and you memorize whatever letter that was. So U. So now you look at where this needs to go. This is the white part of the white, red, and blue, and that goes up here, which is B. Now this is the yellow part of the yellow, green, and orange, and that goes right down here to U. So we have we have W, U, B, U. So our first cycle was one piece to here, and then we had to start another new cycle from here to here to here. So once we have memorized this and we've checked that every piece on the cube is solved, then we're going to go into execution. So basically the same thing. Setup move for W is just D prime, and then undo the setup move by doing D. So now you notice that is solved. So we get to our buffer piece is in the right slot, but we still have 2 pieces messed up. And what we have memorized is U, B, U. So, setup move of D, undo the setup move with D prime. Then our next one was B. Then we undo the setup move, and then we had U again, and undo our setup move. And now the whole cube is solved. Normally, in a lot of solves, you will have to break into a new cycle at some point. Another thing you may have to deal with when solving the 2x2 blind is something called a flipped corner. So, if you look at this, the whole cube is solved, and you may have memorized letters already and gotten to this point, but you have a piece that is flipped. So this piece, obviously you could do that, but it's really not going to work because that's still flipped. So what you have to do is look at where either the white or yellow sticker is. So if it's on the bottom layer, you look at where the yellow is. If it's on the top layer, you look at where the white is. So since it's on the bottom layer, I'm going to be looking at where the yellow is, which is M-N-O-P. So we're going to memorize P, and I'm going to look at where the yellow is, which for this piece, it's V. So on to the end of my memorization already, I will add P, V. So once we go into execution, we've done everything else, and we get to this point, we just do it like normal. P, setup moves, undo the setup moves, and then V, where there were no setup moves, and you're done. Flipped corners are really easy, and it doesn't really add that much time. However, the one thing you do have to be careful of is that you notice them when you're memorizing. So, once you're done with your memorization, or you think you are, you always want to make sure that you've affected every piece that was unsolved, and you want to look and see if you have any pieces that are flipped. So in the right place, but not facing the right way. I'm now going to go through a really simple example solve where you don't have to deal with new cycles or flipped corners. So follow along with this scramble, with white on top and green in front, as always. U prime, R2, F2, R prime, U2, R, U2, R, F prime. So, once we've scrambled our cube, we want to look around and see if we see anything that's solved. So, is this solved? No, it's not, because these side pieces do not line up. So we're going to keep looking. This is lined up and solved. So, what we want to do is we want to position this correctly in accordance to white on top and green in front. So, green in front, and this is yellow, so it will be on the bottom because white is on top and yellow is opposite of white. So, now we're going to start memorization and the solve. So, looking at the buffer piece, the E location, this is the red part of the red, white, and blue, which goes right here into the N slot. This is the yellow part of the yellow, red, and blue. Since it's yellow, it goes down here into the W slot. This is the green part of the red, green, and white. And since it's the green part, it goes right here to the J slot. So far we've memorized N, W, J. We're going to keep going. So this is the yellow part of the white, green, and yellow. This goes right here into the F slot. This, being the orange part of the white, orange, and blue, goes down here into the H slot. This is the buffer piece. So this is the white, blue, and orange corner, and it goes right here, but we do not memorize that. Whenever you reach the buffer piece, you do not put the buffer slot into your memorization, because if you think about it, you can't really keep the buffer piece in the same place and move it to the swapping spot. So, when we start the solve, we're going to start with N. So, what we have to do is our setup moves, R prime, F, and then do the swapping algorithm. Undo our setup moves with F prime, R. So as you notice, now this piece is solved because red would be on the front and blue is always in the back because it's opposite of green. Now we have W. This is W, and the setup move would be D prime. Swapping algorithm, and then D is our undoing the setup move. Now that's solved. The next thing we had was J. So what we're going to do is R prime is our setup move, swapping algorithm, undo our setup move with R. And we had F was our next piece. So setup moves, F prime, D, swapping algorithm, D prime, F. So now I have one more thing, which is H. So for H, the setup move would be D prime, R. So you see this is now went from right here. We did a setup move that took it from here to here, and then another move that took it from here to here. So swapping algorithm, and we undo our setup moves. So, as you can see, this solve's done now. I'm now going to go through an example solve where we do have to deal with new cycles and flipped corners. So, follow along with the scramble. White on top, green in front. R, U, F prime, U2, F, R, F2, U2, F prime. So, if we look around this, look around, there really aren't any solved pieces. There's no solved blocks. This might look good, but it's really not because these pieces do not line up. So I'm just going to pick any corner. So for this one, I'll pick the white, green, and orange corner and line it up with where it needs to go. So this is oriented, so now we're going to start memorization. Looking at the buffer piece, that's the green part of the red, green, and white. So that goes to right here, which is J. Well, this is the buffer piece, so we stop memorizing here for this cycle. As you can see, obviously, doing one swap is not going to solve everything on this cube. So, we'll look around and pick any unsolved piece. So, I might pick V, because that's normally, if I have to start a new cycle, I will look to see if I can use the letter V, because that does not require any setup moves, so it's pretty easy to execute. So, looking at V, this is the blue part of the yellow, red, and blue, and this would go to right here, which is T. This is T, which is the green of the green, orange, and yellow, which would go right here, which is I, J, K, L. So far, we have memorized J, made to start a new cycle, V, T, L. Now we're going to look at this. This needs to go back to right here, and that is the P location. So, since we return to the piece that we started our new cycle on, which is right here, it's still on the same piece, we're stopping this new cycle right here. So, we have now J, V, T, L, P. Next, we can check since we've done a new cycle, if we've done all the corners. So I'm going to look at this. We did J, V, T, L, V. So, since we look at this, JTVLP, sorry. Once we've done this, we can look and see we still haven't touched this corner or this corner. So we're going to have to start yet another new cycle. So I'm going to pick this piece because it's in the bottom layer, and all it takes is a D2 setup move, as you can see. So this would be the X location, and that's the white part of the red, white, and blue, which goes up here to B, and that's the yellow part, which goes back down to X. So we have J, V, T, L, P, X, B, X. So that's pretty long, and you might have a little trouble memorizing that at first, but you'll get used to it, and it becomes really easy with some practice. So now we're going to go into execution. So our first letter was J. I'm going to do this, and that was our first cycle. So as you can see, the buffer piece is now in its right place, and we put one piece in place. The next thing we chose was V. So V does not take any setup moves, so we're just going to execute that there. The next thing we chose was T. So for that, we do an R, swap, and then R prime to undo the setup move. The next thing we had was L. L is one of the harder setup moves, and it takes 2 moves to do, counting by the outer block turn metric, which counts in F2 as 1 move. So F2, R prime. Swapping algorithm, R, F2. As you can see, we've got more pieces in place now. The next thing we had was P. So for P, there's a couple ways to do it. You could either do RF, or you could do FD. So I'm going to do FD here. swapping algorithm, d prime, f prime. So now we finished our second cycle, and now we have one more cycle left to go. So we memorize x, swapping algorithm, do our setup moves, b, setup moves, swapping, do, and then we memorize x again. Do our setup moves, swap, and undo our setup moves, and now, as you can see, the cube is done.
Well, there you have it. That's how to solve the 2x2 blindfolded. I hope this video is helpful to you, and for the future, good luck.